Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jaya Mudiraye. Hare Krishna. Good afternoon. So we will talk today about the philosophy of Krishna consciousness and the practice of Krishna consciousness on the basis of Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita as it is. And we will chant together the verse from the 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, which is entitled Nature, the Enjoyer and Consciousness, and the verse number 22. Purushaha Prakriti Sthaha Hi Bhunkte Prakritijan Gunan Karanam Gunasangaha Asya Sadasat Yoni Janmasu Purushah Prakritisto Hi Bhunkte Prakriti Jangunan Karanam Gunasangosya Sadasad Yoni Janmasu Purushah Prakritisto Hi Bhunkte Prakriti Jangunan Karanam Gunasangosya Sadasat Yoni Janmasu Purushaha, the living entity. Prakriti Staha, being situated in the material energy. He certainly Bhunkte enjoys. Prakritijan, produced by the material nature. Gunan, the modes of nature. Karanam, the cause. Gunasangaha, the association with the modes of nature. Asya, of the living entity. Sat asat, in the good and bad. Yoni, species of life. Janmasu, in birth. The living entity, translation, the living entity in material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of nature. This is due to his association with the material nature. Thus, he meets with good and evil among various species. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vijnana Goswami Prabhupada ki. This verse is very important for an understanding of how the living entities transmigrate from one body to another. It is explained in the 2nd chapter that the living entity is transmigrating from one body to another just as one changes dress. This change of dress is due to his attachment to material existence. As long as he is captivated by this false manifestation, he has to continue transmigrating from one body to another. Due to his desire to lord it over material nature, he is put into such undesirable circumstances. Under the influence of material nature, of material desire, the living entity is born sometimes as a demigod, sometimes as a man, sometimes as a beast, as a bird, as a worm, as an aquatic, as a saintly man, as a bug. This is going on. And in all cases, the living entity thinks himself to be the master of his circumstances. Yet he is under the influence of material nature. How he is put into such different bodies is explained here. It is due to association with the different modes of nature. One has to rise, therefore, above the three material modes and become situated in the transcendental position. This is called Krishna consciousness. Unless one is situated in Krishna consciousness, his material consciousness will oblige him to transfer from one body to another because he has material desires since time immemorial. But he has to change that conception. That change can be effected only by hearing from authoritative sources. The best example is here. Arjuna is hearing the signs of God from Krishna. The living entity, if he submits to this hearing process, will lose his long-cherished desire to dominate material nature. And gradually and proportionately, as he reduces his long desire to dominate, he comes to enjoy spiritual happiness. In the Vedic mantra, it is said that as he becomes learned in association with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he proportionately relishes his eternal blissful life. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Purushah prakriti stohi, bhunkte prakriti jangunan karanam guna sangasya sadasat yoni janmasu. The living entity in the material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of nature. This is due to his association with that material nature. Thus, he meets with good and evil among various species. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Ajanulambit bhujo khanakavadato Sankirtanai kapitaro kamalaya taksha Vishvambaro dvijavaro yugadharma palo Vande jagat priyakaro karunavataro. Namashristam manumepi sachiputra matra svarupam rupam tasyagrajamarupurim madhurim goshtavatim radhakunda girivaramaho radhika madhavasam praptoyasya prathita kripaya Shri Guru Tam Natosmi. Yantah pravishya mama vacham imam prasuktam sanjeevayata kila shakti dharak svadhamna anyam shahasta charana shravana tvagadim pranamnamo bhagavate purushaya tubhya. Hare Krishna. So we'll talk a little bit about this particular verse of Bhagavad Gita, although Prabhupada wrote a brilliant purport to this verse. But to stress certain points of this verse, it's worth spending some time deliberating on these concepts. Actually, the whole structure of Bhagavad Gita is very peculiar. According to the commentators, the first 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita explains the position of the living entity. That the living entity is eternal, that the living entity doesn't die when body dies. And that's in itself is a great relief. It's the best news we have ever heard. Because we're all somehow or other afraid of death. Srila Prabhupada writes in the introduction to Bhagavad Gita that our very existence is in the atmosphere of non-existence. The combination of eternal spirit soul with the perishable body, which is constantly dying, which is in the process of dying and getting old and being diseased, is very incompatible. This combination is not a happy combination. Even though sometimes we pretend that everything is fine. You know, in Russian, I'm coming from Russia, and there is a very famous song. Everything will be all right. Everything will be all right, all right, all right, all right. Nothing will be all right. You will die. You will be sick. You will suffer. So, but people, they're trying to kind of project this illusion that it's a happy combination, but ultimately it's an incompatible combination. Because the spirit soul is eternal and body is dying. And how can I really come in terms with this fact? It's not possible. Therefore, Maharaja Yudhishthira in Mahabharata, while he asked, what is the most amazing thing in this world? He immediately answered that the most amazing thing, ahanyahani bhutani gachanti hayamalayam stavaram ichanti kimascharyam atah param. He says that the most amazing thing in this world is that we see that everyone is dying. Ahanyahani bhutani gachanti hayamalayam. Day after day after day after day, we see that everyone goes to this gachanti hayamalayam, this abode of death. And still we think that somehow or other I will stay. We have this hope. You know, yesterday we were driving somewhere. Actually, every day practically in New York there is this ambulance with this huge sirens. You know, and you see it. It's somebody is going to Yamalok. Gachanti ha Yamalayam. But it's not about me. It's not yet me. So Srila Prabhupada, he stresses this point in the introduction to Bhagavad Gita when he says our very existence is in the atmosphere of non-existence because we are in this asat atmosphere. Asat means temporary. Asat means something which is not eternal, which has the end. And we are eternal. And Krishna, by saying very strongly and explaining this philosophy, is actually liberating us from fear. He says, you're eternal, don't worry. Don't worry. Don't be afraid. Nothing will happen with you. The soul is eternal. It cannot be killed. Nothing will happen with the soul. Still we're afraid. Then in the next 6 chapters, this is the message of the first 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita. In the next 6 chapters, it is explained that behind this material nature there is the Supreme Lord, God, who is more or less directing everything. Maya Prakriti, what is this? Maya Dyakshana Prakriti. He says that the whole material nature, Suyate Sachara Charaya, all the living entity, moving and non-moving, they are under my direction. I am behind this. I am the doer. Don't worry. It's not the President of America who is in charge, luckily for everyone. Ultimately, it's the Supreme Lord. He is the mover, and He is the doer. He is arranging everything. He is behind everything, behind all the energies. This whole material nature is just decoration. And behind the decoration, the puppeteer. And we are puppets. And the modes of material nature is like strings. And we are, we are working under this puppeteer, and we think, I'm great. Look how great I am. We are controlled. We are not independent. This is the message of the next chapters, explaining how everything works in this material world, that there is God and He is the controller, ultimately. Another message of this middle 6 chapters is that because you are dependent, you are a small living entity, eternal living entity, but because you are dependent, you have to surrender. Again and again, Krishna explains this, especially in the 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. He says, just surrender unto me. And that's actually the whole message of Bhagavad Gita. But in the last chapters, in the last 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains why it is so difficult for us to surrender. We are a living entity. That's a good news. There is Supreme Lord who is in control of everything. That's another good news. What is bad news is that we have to surrender to Him. That's a bad news. Because it's difficult for us. We have this minute independence given by the Supreme Lord, and we misuse this independence. And this misuse of independence is called actually material desire. And Srila Prabhupada very beautifully explains that the material desire is the cause for undesirable situation, which we are in. And we are all in a very undesirable situation. Even though in this material world it is a custom, especially here, it is a custom to say, I'm all right, I'm all right, I'm all right. Everything is fine with me. Once I went to one friend of mine who was very sick, and he actually got an accident, and he was, laying in the bed, and, his one leg was up there, and in a cast, and I asked him, how are you? He said, I'm all right. But we are all in the same situation. We are all right, Just now, before the lecture, we were walking in the street, and there was one person, homeless person, sitting there on the walking street, and he's just, drinking some drink, and we're walking by him, and he's like, how are you? How are you? And the answer is, of course, we're all right, and you are all right. But we are not. We are in the undesirable situation. And as I said, the message of this last chapters of Bhagavad Gita is explaining the nature of this entanglement. We are entangled in this material nature. Even if we know I'm the spirit soul, even if we know there is God, still it's very difficult. Still we're still here in the material world, and we don't want to get out of here. And in particularly in this verse and purport, Krishna is explaining what is the reason of our stubbornness, why we are stuck in this material nature. It is said very clearly here, Purushah prakriti stho hi. Purusha is stuck in Prakriti. It's very difficult for us to get out. Even though, as I said, the nature of the soul, of consciousness and matter are opposite. They are not compatible. The combination is undesirable. It's not a compatible. It's not a good combination. It's not a happy combination. Still, Purusha, as Krishna says, is completely stuck in this material nature. Doesn't want to get out. Why? Bhunkte Prakriti Jangunan. Because he thinks he is enjoying this experience of associating with the material nature, with material modes of nature. And everyone is of this, in this position. We are trying to interact with the material nature, and we think that this interaction which our senses have with the sense objects is the enjoyment, is the meaning of life, is the happiness. It's actually not happiness, but because of this misconception, it's a misconception, it's a mistake, but it's very deeply rooted mistake. And it's a mistake which nobody wants to correct. That's the mistake which everyone just kind of likes it. It's a nice mistake, you know. And as Prabhupada says, what is the most amazing thing is that no matter which situation you are in, you think, it's okay. It may be not the best, but it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. I'm all right. It's not so bad. You know, you may be born as a bug. You know, every bug thinks, it's all right. You know, I'm a bug in America, you know. We were just in Florida, and in Florida there is a special species of life which is called love bugs. This is two bugs who always fly together. They're completely, they're stuck together, and they're enjoying the sexual intercourse during the whole life which they live. You know, they're always there. They fly together, and of course the lady is in charge. There. It's American love bugs. Whatever. Anyway, so I'm sorry for politically incorrect jokes. but it's a species of life, you know, and they think we're all right, you know. If you would be able to speak with these bugs and you would ask them, how are you? They would say, I'm okay, I'm all right. I'm living in Florida, and I'm flying here. And Prabhupada says that this is exactly what is said here, sadasat yoni janmasu. Because of this attachment to this experience of interacting with the material nature, we are stuck in this nature, and therefore sadasat yoni janmasu. By being born from different species of life, from different wombs. And sometimes it's sad, sometimes it's a good body, like human body is very good, but it's not always like this. It's not a guarantee that if now you're born as a human being, you will not be born somebody else. It all depends on your desires. What Krishna is explaining here, he says that ultimately it's your desire. Whatever situation you are in, it's due to your own desire. We desired. And, you know, we come, everything which is happening is actually due to our desire. God is just arranging everything according to our desires. It will be said in the next verse, in one of the next verses, that Paramatma is sitting there and watching our desires. Srila Prabhupada explains that Paramatma, the desires is like a smell, aroma, which is emanating from the conscious soul. Tiny little soul is sitting within the heart, and the super soul is also there in the heart. And little soul is emanating desires. And the Supreme Lord is smelling these desires. I mean, Srila Prabhupada says it's an aroma of the desires, but it's rather stinking sort of odor which is coming from the soul. But Krishna says, if you want this, okay, all right, no problem. You can have it. But please don't blame me. But somehow or other, living entity, they do everything according to their desire, and when it comes to reap the results of their desires, they blame God. God is unjust. God is bad. You know, why did He make me suffer? He made you suffer. He didn't make you suffer. You yourself made you suffer. On the first place, because you wanted to enjoy, and suffering is just the other side of the coin. Enjoyment and the suffering in the material world, they are inseparable. And even while enjoying your suffering, and then you suffer the results. That's very clearly is explained by Patanjali Muni in Yoga Sutra, how the consequence of every enjoyment inevitably, by the science, it's a scientific fact that every enjoyment ends up in suffering. You wanted to enjoy, here it is. Krishna says, do it, please enjoy. Srila Jayapatak Maharaj tells a very interesting story. Once Prabhupada was in Mayapur, and he saw a big cockroach, you know, this Indian cockroaches, which are really, you know, very maha cockroach, you know, not just tiny little Western cockroach, it's a big cockroach. And the cockroach was crawling in the floor of Prabhupada's room, and Prabhupada picked this cockroach up, came to the window, and put the cockroach outside of the window, you know, and let him fall, and he said, here's the material world, enjoy it. It's yours. It belongs to you. You know. So this is our position. We're crawling in this material world. Enjoy it. It's all yours. Do whatever you like with it. So, but then we suffer as a result. Unfortunately, we suffer. Who doesn't suffer? Is there anyone who doesn't suffer? Nobody. Everyone is suffering here. And Krishna is very clearly said, what is the cause for this? The cause is karanam guna sangasya sadasat yoni janmasu. Why do we born? Why do we transmigrate again and again and again and again and again and again in different species of life? Because we're used to certain association with the gunas, and we like it. And whoever we are, and whatever body we are, we like it. The hawk likes to be a hawk. We as a human being look down at the hawk. The hawk, you know, especially in Vrindavan or somewhere in India, the hawk is there, you know, and we look down, and this is so dirty and so abominable. And then the hawk eats stew. But the hawk likes it. The hawk likes stew. It's Sunday feast for him. You know, if it's nice, steaming stew, very fresh, the hawk likes it. Because he has the body of the hawk. And when you have the body of the hawk, you will have to behave, Srila Prabhupada says in the previous purport, you will have to behave like a hawk. There is this story from Puranas that sometimes Lord Indra, because of the curse, he became the hawk. He became the hawk. Lord Indra was degraded to this position, and he was enjoying. And Lord Brahma came and said, you know, you go back, you become Indra. He said, no, I like it here. I don't want to become Indra. It's so much headache to be Indra. I like to sit in this pit of stew. It's plenty to eat, and it's nice, and the weather is nice, everything is fine. So this is our position, unfortunate position. It's very humiliating position. And of course, when we are born as a human being, there is some dignity in it. Therefore, Krishna says, Sada sat yoni janmasu. Sometimes you are born in a good species of life. But the problem is that we don't really appreciate it to the fullest extent. And therefore, we do the same old business as anyone else. We are not going beyond it. We are not really using the capacity or the potential which is there in the human body. And therefore, it is said, Karanam guna sangasya. And Prabhupada says, this is the problem. The problem is that we are attached to this sort of happiness. And we think that to be happy, we have to fulfill our desires. Prabhupada, he gives the example, and that he says, and I think he gives the example from his own life, that once a man was dying. And he's dying, his body is useless, but he still has the desire. And he thinks that if I fulfill this desire, I would be happy. And Prabhupada says that this dying man, he begs the doctor, please give me few more months to live because I want to fulfill this desire. And it is explained very clearly in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam that this desire which you have at the moment of death, this regret which you have, usually people when they're young, they think, I will be all right, I will be happy, this and that. But then something goes wrong, and usually something goes wrong, this goes wrong. And for the time being, it's okay. But when you hit 60, you kind of start doubting whether I will be happy or not. But you still have a lot of hopes because, it's not so soon. 60 is not so bad. And then you hit 70 very soon. It just goes like this. In the 70, you're really doubtful. And then you start thinking, how I would be happy if my life would be different. And you start playing out the different scenario of your life. If I didn't marry this nasty woman, I would be probably happy. And Krishna is sitting there as the super soul, and he notes down in his notebook, he wants to marry a different woman. Okay, no problem. So there is a record which is going on, the record of our desires. And all the desires which are residing within our heart, we will get another chance to fulfill these desires. There will be another life and another life, no problem. Krishna is very tolerant and he is waiting, Okay, let him enjoy this way and this way. He is actually waiting when we come to senses. When we really understand that this is a hopeless position. It is hopeless. It is hopeless. Material world is a very nice place because it's so hopeless. And as soon as you understand that it's hopeless, you will become happy. If you want to be happy in this material world, just understand that there is no hope for you to be happy in this world. You immediately will become happy. There is a very nice story from China. There was one man who was really angry. Old man. He was really angry at everyone, and he was, and he was unhappy and very sad, and everyone hated him. He was living in a village, and he was 70-year-old and then 80-year-old. And then at one point, the news spreads through the village. This old Chinese person all of a sudden became happy. And all the villagers ran to him and asked, what happened to you? You were so angry and so sad and so unhappy all the time. And he said, yeah, I was so angry because I always thought that something is wrong with my life, and then when I will become happy, when I will become happy, when I will become happy. And then now I realize that I will never become happy, and I immediately became happy. That's the reason. I realized that I'm already happy. When we realize this simple fact that whatever we need is already there, provided by God. He is there in charge. He gave us everything which we need. And whatever He didn't give, thanks God He didn't give. Because we don't need it. Whatever we need, He gives. And please be happy in whatever situation you are. Accept it as a mercy of God. In this way, you will be free from these material desires, from this endless and useless, completely senseless chain of material desires, which is the cause of the perpetuation of your sufferings. Material life is as it is. It's going on, everything is nice, the sun is there, the food is there, the nice association is there, but the real happiness is beyond the realm of material experience. And that's what Prabhupada says in the purport. That you have to understand that there is happiness, and you are capable of experiencing this happiness proportionately to diminishing of your desire to experience material happiness. As soon as you diminish your desire to experience material happiness, your ability to experience spiritual happiness proportionately will increase, and you will feel it. No doubt about it. If you have this, if you're obsessed, I need to be happy, I need to be happy, I need to be materially happy, and you chant Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, when I will be happy? And Prabhupada said, chant and be happy. And when it will come? Prabhupada promised. Why it doesn't come? Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. When it will come? You will never be happy. But if you will chant and you understand that you're already happy, you will be happy. Because that's the natural condition of the soul. The soul is happy. What is unhappy is the combination of the soul and matter, and the hope for the soul to enjoy matter. This is the source of unhappiness. And if you disassociate with this desire, you will feel the natural happiness which is there within the soul. In the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, there is a very nice conversation between 4 Kumaras and Hamsa avatar. And 4 Kumaras, they are yogis. And they came to Hamsa avatar, the avatar of God in the form of swan, and they asked, we examined very carefully all the senses and the sense objects. And they say it's so natural, the combination of the senses and the sense objects is so natural. And then this combination of the senses and the sense object and the mind, it's a perfect combination. So naturally our senses like to enjoy. The eyes like to enjoy vision, the nose wants to enjoy good aromas. It's so natural. They say how we can disassociate mind from the senses and from the object of the senses, which is supposedly the goal of yoga. And Hamsa Avatar gave a very important answer. He said the goal of yoga is not to withdraw the senses from the object of the senses. Sometimes people think that the goal of yoga is just to withdraw all your senses from the material world, go to a seclusion, lock yourself in the cave. But Hamsa Avatar says, no. The goal of yoga is not to withdraw the senses from the sense object. The goal of yoga is to withdraw you from your mind. Because you are different from the mind. The soul, the source of the consciousness is different from the mind. The goal of yoga is to explain to you that you're not your mind. Don't take seriously all the desires which are there in your mind. It's not you. Just neglect them. Yeah, another desire, very nice. Just watch how it goes. It will go. You are not this mind. You're separate. And you have happiness on your own. You're happy on your own when you are not really attached to your mind. And that's the goal of yoga. Don't be attached to your mind. Don't take it seriously. The mind is like a child. Little child, you know, he's crying, and then you give him something and he's, very good, very good. And then, the little child doesn't have any sense. The mind is the same. The mind has all these demands and all these desires. Don't take it seriously. How do you deal with the little child? You know, if you take him seriously, he will make your life hell. Just don't take him seriously, you know. Just pet him and say, yeah, very nice, very nice. You're very nice, you're very nice. And then he becomes peaceful. The same thing you should do with your mind. Yes, mind wants something. Mind is crying. I want this. Give me this. This is what you need. This is what will make you happy. You say, yes, yes, yes. Very good, very good. Nice, nice. Nice boy, nice boy. He will forget it, no problem. After some time, he will forget it. And if he doesn't forget, you know, whatever happens, it happens. Just don't take it seriously. You as a spirit soul has the dignity on its own. You're a dignified human being with the soul capable to love God. Try to develop this. And Prabhupada explains very beautifully in this purport how you can rise above this entanglement with the material modes of nature just by hearing process. Because what is this entanglement? It's just misconception within our mind. It's just misunderstanding within our mind. And if you change this conception within your mind, you will become peaceful, you will become happy, and you will develop amazing abilities which are innate to your soul. Now you're crippled. Because of this association with this material body, you're crippled. Actually, the soul is very powerful. The soul is more powerful than this material energy. It's superior energy. It's para-prakriti. This material energy is actually powerless, but the soul is very powerful. All the mystic, you know, the yogis who develop mystic powers, amazing mystic powers, this is just little tiny uncovering of the potential which the soul, every soul has. You are extremely powerful. You are just crippled by the attachment to this body. Which is steaming, which is the root cause of this attachment, is misconception. How should you correct misconception? Just here, from the proper source. And we all know this experience. I'm sure, I hope you all have this experience. You hear something which you heard so many times before, but then you hear it from the proper source and you realize this, that's true. All of a sudden you say, yes, that's true, yeah, oh, it's so simple. You know, because the sound has this capacity to penetrate the coverings of the soul and go directly to the soul. The sound has this capacity to wake up the sleeping soul to its real consciousness, and the soul will understand, yes, I'm not this body. I'm the lover of God. And of course, the most important sound in this regard is the sound of Hare Krishna mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. You know, this is the sound which, if it's coming from the proper source, if it's coming from the powerful non-dual consciousness of somebody who is not really a part of this world, who is actually living in the spiritual realm, if this sound, if you hear this sound coming from this source, then immediately you will understand, yes, I'm spirit soul. Yes, I'm happy already. I don't need to wait for happiness. That's the meaning of Prabhupada's slogan, chant and be happy. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. You're already happy. Because by doing this, you are situated beyond the material world. You are with Krishna. Krishna and Krishna's name are non-different. Chanting his name, you're already with him. And in this way, you become happy. Otherwise, you're free to choose. Everyone is free to choose. This is a free world. America is the free country. Very free, no problem. Do whatever you like. But Krishna says this is the real freedom. Where is the freedom is, what do we choose? Do we choose trying to squeeze out material happiness from this association with the material world, or trying to realize our spiritual happiness? And they are inversely proportionate. The more you try to enjoy material happiness, the less you have the ability to feel or experience spiritual happiness. And vice versa, the more you are detached from these hopeless attempts to enjoy material happiness, the more you develop the ability to feel and experience spiritual happiness. The spiritual happiness is there, it's real, it's not imaginary. It's not so tangible for us only because of our attachments. And there is only one way to develop the healthy and happy detachment from this world, is just to hear what Krishna has to say to us. And to hear ultimately the sound of the holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And at this very moment, when we had this experiment, different people had different experience. Why? Because of the different degree of attachment to this world. But ultimately, we're all intelligent people, and we understand the happiness which is there in detachment. Those people who are detached, they are very happy people. So, and it doesn't mean that you have to, change something drastically. No, please, live in New York, no problem, but be detached from New York. Turn your consciousness inward where Krishna is there, and then New York will become spiritual world. I hope there's no skyscrapers in the spiritual world, but New York will become a very happy place for you. So anyway, thank you very much. This is what I had to say according to this purport. Thank you. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.